I think a lot of the time what's happening with the contemporary tattoo culture is tattooing is completely commonplace and everyday. There's no significance to it. Very empty. So it's like anyone can get tattooed for whatever reason they want, firstly. So it starts to lower the bar of entry to why you'd get a tattoo.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hirsch Redpun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today on Truth Tastes Funny is Mark Nara. Mark has a platform called Tattoo Pathways, which is very much as it sounds, guiding people through the tattooing process, through the meaning of tattooing. What is the psychology behind what they're doing? Sometimes they'll come to Mark with tattoos that have already been created on their bodies, and they want to kind of reconcile the art that exists with what they're feeling in the moment. And I'm sure Mark can explain it even better, and we're excited to talk with him. Thanks so much for being on the show, Mark.
Hey, no problem. Thanks so much for having me, Hirsch. And that's a good intro. You hit the
Good.
nail on the head there. Yeah.
Good. Well, it's great to have you. We had talked a little bit previously, and you asked me if I had any body art, any tattoos, and I don't. And that in a way makes for a very interesting conversation because the perspectives are so different. And but
Yeah.
I do have a real interest in how the things we go through in life affect us, and what kind of mark they leave on us, regardless of what we do to commemorate them. And I know that that's
Yeah.
a big part of your process. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, I just want to say, like, you're totally right. It's like it's a good angle to come in when one person doesn't really have a lived experience of something and someone else is in it. So, not having any tattoos, and then me being in this sort of place I am, it's almost like we can start from ground level and build an understanding together as we talk,
Yeah.
opposed to someone who has tattoos and they think they know what it is already, because usually there's a big gap. And then, yeah, I guess a little bit about myself. I was that person. So, I was in the tattoo industry for a number of years, got into it for artwork, wanting to be a good technical artist. I was studying visual arts and I was arty in school, and also not very academic in a lot of areas that didn't interest me. But then at some I excelled. And then, yeah, after school going into study, it was a matter of like, am I going to be that struggling artist, or am I going to try and do some graphic design? And for whatever reason, tattoo sort of came into my field as a path I could pursue, that I think at the time I thought it was cool. I was like, it's a bit different. There's something about it that I like. And yeah, I sort of applied myself to it, and over a number of years, because it's a pretty hard medium to work with, just technically, over like canvas or
Yeah.
stone or something like that. Um, I became good at tattooing. Not the best artist in the world, but proficient enough that I could make a living from it. And then at some stage, I think it was roughly around 2012. I think you start going through that process of asking existential questions, and things are starting to present themselves as challenges in your life. So you have to have a little bit of, I guess, reflection on who you are and stuff. And at that point, I started questioning why I was tattooing as well, and what was happening to people. And um, I guess when you get to a stage where you question yourself and who you are and what you're doing, For myself being in the tattoo field, it was like a lot of that information is stored in what's on your skin, and those stages are held there. So I think that was probably the first little window into what I do now, which it's taken a long time to sort of pry that window open and really understand what's there. But yeah, that's a little bit of a background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Do people when they come in, uh, would you say you have more clients that come in with no kind of real direction or understanding of what they want to do and they're looking for guidance? Or do they come in with maybe some strong opinions and just need a little help?
Most of the time, most of the time, people will have um, a pretty clear reason that they're there. They will. They might just need some guidance in, I guess, reframing what it is they're doing with the tattoo. They know why they're there, um, but there might be like different pieces of how they view tattooing that are kind of leading the process for them. So it might be that they really know what it is that they want tattooed as an image, whereas the reason why they want that image is definitely more important, and really unpacking that. So that sometimes it's just like rearranging the order of things for people. Um, I thought you were going to ask, do I get people that have tattoos already? Kind of like you
Yeah.
said at the start, that just need it to be remodeled. Um, and
Well,
and on that, it's like probably, there you go.
I was going to say, well, you do get a lot of those. There are a lot of people that want to update the message is maybe a way that I would put it. Update the
Yeah,
meaning.
update the meaning, update the message. Of course, yeah. So it's like probably 80 to 90% already have tattoos when they come in.
Mhm.
And so this is part of the reframing. They'll come in for their next tattoo, so they'll come in for their next tattoo, and that reframing or that updating that a lot of people do, initially they don't think it has to do with the tattoos they already have. They just think it's time for the next tattoo, right? So they come in and they're like, cool, this is where I'm at in my life now. So I'm going to get this tattoo. And it's usually that's where I pull people up. And the first thing I do that not many other artists do is I'm like, well, what are the tattoos? What are the tattoos that you already have? And what information's in there? And so we sort of start to do this like itinerary of their tattoos.
Yeah.
In real time, we're sitting there,
So
and
there's
that
there's
process
like a
is
story.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. And so it's like, oh, there's this and this and this and this, and it's like, okay. For me, it's important because you sometimes there's patterns when they're telling you those stories, and the pattern a lot of the time just wants to sort of reinvent and re-experience itself, only to get back to a place where they're at again. Um, opposed to opposed to having awareness of what the story is and trying to move it forward in a way that like isn't leaving part of them behind, or isn't denying a part of the last cycle that they were in. Or so we're trying to sort of bring all of their tattoos together into a story that's cohesive. um, and so one of the analogies I use to sort of explain it is like, if it was something that you were writing in a journal, a lot of people's tattoos don't read really well cover to cover cohesively.
Yeah.
So if you were to read through it, it might be that there's an entry from this stage and an entry from this stage, and they might even just be like randomly on different pages in the book because they've just picked a page to go to in the book. You know, some pages might be in direct conflict with another page in terms of what they're saying, so it's like it's not cohesive, it's nonsensical. There might even be just like guest entries in the book, You know, they might, someone else might have just picked a page and written a story in it about themselves. It's not even about them anymore, which
Yeah,
is super
well,
common because we have so much of that artist, this rock star artist thing happening, you know, where the
yeah.
person's the canvas. So the
What I
artist wants their
was
story out there.
what I was thinking is, how much of it is for other people to see and what it means to other people. And I'm talking about tattoos that are visible and tattoos that are maybe on areas that are less commonly seen. But
Mm.
how much are people doing it for themselves so they don't care what anybody thinks about what it means, and how many are really wanting to communicate and express something so they hope that the understanding will be clear.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's happening from both angles for sure. You see
Sure.
people that are getting things, and it's like a false representation of themselves because they need it to, you know, potentially. Sometimes there's like this hiding behind something or armoring themselves, you know, needing to protect. Sometimes there's just like an inflation that happens. I was actually thinking about this the other day when I was putting a piece together that I was writing, and I was using this analogy of whether something fits and and whether your shoes fit, you know, and like you can have shoes that are uncomfortable, you know, and some
Yeah.
people force their foot into a shoe that doesn't fit well because of, like you're saying, you know, they want to wear their heels out, let's say, for New Year's Eve, right? Let's just use that because that's where we're at in the calendar. And so they're purposely wearing these uncomfortable shoes because they want to present in a particular way, but it doesn't fit them very well. You know, in fact, if they were to continue to wear that for too long, it would damage their foot, right? Um, but then there's also the uncomfort that can come with something that's corrective of who you are. You know, so like if you start wearing like a minimal shoe so that your feet can widen, if you've been wearing a conventional shoe with a narrow toe space, when you start wearing this minimal shoe and your foot starts to spread out and it's a corrective process, that's really painful, you know? So there's different ways that I'm using the shoe analogy, but your tattoo can be affecting who you are. And this is like in a deep subconscious way, you know, or if you want it to be something that's working for you, you really need to bring awareness and consciousness into what it is that you're doing. You really got to think about it. And the the thing that we're facing is that there isn't really much to guide people. You know, this is where the tattoo pathway stuff becomes relevant, and what's kind of, I guess, put the wind in the sail for us is when you start looking at this, there isn't much that people have to draw on to give them any direction or any insight into what's actually happening as a result of getting tattooed. Um, so yeah, that's the place we're in, and there's all of these different sort of patterns or almost like archetypes when you start really paying attention to it and having like lots of conversations with people that are tattooed and hearing their stories. Um, there's almost like a conditioning that we sort of collectively have, or a prescription we have. Like this is what tattooing is. This is how we do it. This is why we do it. And everyone's running that. And the results are producing these patterns in people that are like stereotypical, which are really interesting. So one of them is that, you know, one of them is like wearing the high heels, you know, putting the shoe on that doesn't fit because you want to present a certain way, you know, and the only thing is you can't take it off. You know, imagine
Well,
putting on that really that really tight shoe and not being able to
yeah.
take it off.
Well, and I always think about it when I see people whose faces are tattooed, and they could have, tattoos throughout their body, and there's something about the face being the
Mm,
focal point for most of us, the eye contact, the place that our eyes go. Um, and and I wonder, you know, what are they what are they thinking about that? Like what is going through their mind, in the sense that I don't mean, just one, tattoo. I mean like having a real mosaic kind of on their face where, there's
Mm.
there's a lot going on there, and a majority of
Yep.
people just don't do that. And so,
Yeah.
does it take a certain type of personality, let's say, to really do a lot of art? Uh, is it something that once you start, you just keep wanting to add to it? What are some of the people,
Mm.
their mindsets like when they come in and do their face and start
Okay.
to,
Okay.
yeah,
There's a couple of layers, right? And so, like, firstly, it's like the face is a very big commitment to yourself, and the way I see it, in a healthy way. So there's like healthy and unhealthy, or there's like rational, irrational
right,
relationships that you can have with anything, right? Um, so when you see the face done in a context that's well fitted, okay, it's suitable. You should have your face done. Let's say in a traditional culture where it's being developed in a system where it makes sense. Okay, so like a pattern that they're receiving on their face is part of their narrative and their mythology and who they are and their cosmology, and it's in their carving and it's in their cloth and it's in their stories. It's like it makes sense, should be there, and they're in a position to receive that. Then it's like the face becomes this really powerful and sign and commitment and contract to who they are, to their people, to the future of their people. Okay, that's a healthy thing. We see that sometimes in some contexts. What I was like, I guess, feeling when you were talking about this kind of mosaic thing on the face and what's going on for people, I think there's that first context I talked about. You wouldn't just get your face tattooed. You'd have to be in a position where it was again appropriate. Like you wouldn't be allowed to get your face tattooed in that type of societal structure, let's say. Yeah, old world, old world, new world, post truth, no boundaries. You are, and you can be whoever you want, and you can play dress ups, and a lot of people don't have any, I guess, mechanisms in place to screen what's influencing them, or to really unpack what it is that they're sort of navigating in their life. So there's this natural human thing to sort of like mimic and mirror. You mimic and mirror your past experiences, so you're constantly reinforcing yourself. And then you're also like mimicking and mirroring the world around you. And so it depends what you consume and why you consume stuff. Okay, like what material you read and you watch and you listen to, and who the characters are in your story, in your life. And so I think a lot of the time what's happening with the contemporary tattoo culture is tattooing is completely commonplace and everyday. There's no significance to it. It's very empty. So it's like anyone can get tattooed for whatever reason they want, firstly. So it starts to lower the bar of entry to why you'd get a tattoo. Even old school, like contemporary tattoo culture, you wouldn't get your face or your hands or your neck tattooed if you went into an old school tattoo shop.
right.
The old tattooer in there would be like, if you had no tattoos, if they didn't know who you were, they probably wouldn't tattoo your hands or your face or your neck. Probably have to have had your whole arm done or your whole body done or something with these guys before they'd tattoo you. Old maxims that are like deteriorating in the current tattoo world, because of this sort of influx, I think, of artists and just participation in this everyday. It's become less, like I said, less significant. And then so getting the face done, the reason why it was so significant in past cultures, and why a lot of the old school artists are apprehensive to tattoo people that haven't experienced or have a knowledge of getting tattooed, is the impact it has on yourself when you see yourself, impact it has on other people in a very real way. It starts to change things in your psychology. And so exactly what's happening for people that start getting patchwork on their face, because I haven't done it, I don't know. I do know as soon as you sort of cross this threshold with your first tattoo or like onto your arm, the rest of your arm opens up as something you're more willing to lean into. So that probably does happen. It's like you pass this barrier and then you're there. Um, but more interesting than whether you get your whole face done or not is like what they're getting done on their face and why they're getting it done
Right.
when you start having doing that itinerary side of things, you know? So it's like without letting my mind jump into like there's this person and there's this person, you know, and like an umbrella thing would just be like you'd have to pay attention to what's there. You know, I wouldn't want to say that anybody going into a process of getting their face heavily tattooed was one way or the other in their psychological inclination or whatever. But you can just read a lot in people's tattoos, regardless, you know, and they're very powerful. This is something that I think is not fully understood in the contemporary culture. Is like just how significant they are. You get a tattoo and it does change you physically. It does change you on all the other levels and from different vantage points. You're physically changed to the outside world, and yeah, people can start leaning on that or you know, kind of like clinging to this process that happens of change again to maybe reinforce something. Um, Whereas we're suggesting it shouldn't be a reinforcing. It should be more of a movement forward, like a path of betterment, by using it in these different ways that we've identified that are inherent with tattooing, which is like recording information
Yeah.
and changing you. So like to capitalize on that, opposed to just be caught in the process without being aware, because it can have this like yeah, it can appeal to someone on a level that they're not aware of, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Right. I mean,
Mm,
and so when you were talking about the process and how, some artists would not want to do somebody's face or hands if they hadn't already been telling the story, elsewhere. That's really interesting.
mm,
And it led me to think about those conversations that are possibly a little bit similar to when a plastic surgeon is meeting with a patient and the patient says, I want to look
mm.
like Michael Jackson, or I want to look like this. I want to look like Marilyn Monroe, whatever it might be. And there's kind of an ethical decision to be made about, am I going to am I going to give this person what they want? A, can they get what they want? And B, um, is it really the right thing for them? And because it's so personal and you're the artist, what role do you play yeah, obviously you can turn down a thing and say, well, I just don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
doing it. Um, but
Hmm.
how do you broach those conversations when you're meeting with someone?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, like I said, because tattooing's so everyday, people don't see it as having like as being as extreme as plastic surgery.
Right.
Whereas I'd say it is. I think it is. It's like I lean into this space a bit when I'm talking to people where it's like it has to do with identity, it has to do with who you are. It's a physical change. It's almost the same as cosmetic surgery, but it's just so everyday now that people engage with it very whimsically,
Yeah.
right? And also in terms of like the artists, there's it's every day for them too. It's just bread and butter, you know. So it's like the plastic surgeon, you know. Not that I know this, but I'm just trying to sort of separate and make a difference. It's like they might just like have bookings months and months ahead and financially just be okay to turn someone down that, and it might be rarely that they get someone that comes in and says, hey, you know, I want to look like Michael Jackson. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas in the tattoo field, it's like, dime a dozen these days. You can get tattooed like nearly any corner of any street, and so high access,
Yeah.
low barrier to entry, even cost wise these days. You don't have to spend much because you probably got a friend that'll do it, or someone who will do it cheaper than the highly qualified professionals. And and then so there's like the artist just will do a tattoo because they just need to make their money for the day a lot of the time. And it's like, well, who's to blame them type of thing because it's just a tattoo, you know?
Mhm.
So there's that layer where we're talking about responsibility of an artist, and it's questionable or debatable, especially if you're in the tattoo industry. It's like it's questionable how much responsibility you should take on because it's just such a accepted layer of almost like just fashion these days. So
Yeah.
who are we to say, like I heard this from someone the other day when we were having a chat, and they're like, who are we to say what mistakes someone should or shouldn't make,
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people feel. I don't. Hirsch, I'm talking people out of tattoos all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just going, that's probably not a good idea. And the reason for it is like if I say no to someone and they're really like bent on getting that tattoo, they're just gonna go somewhere else and get it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And
like they can do that.
if
I don't
anything,
need I don't need to do it. Yeah.
you're giving them another step in the process by suggesting that they think about it more. If you feel like it probably wouldn't be, they might regret it, it might not be the right thing, and you share that with them and they persist anyway, that they've gone through a little more process. Circling back around to kind of give the audience something to think about. If if people who are listening are considering a first time tattoo, because I know a lot of people
Hmm.
who, like me, have never done it, but who also feel like they want to. Most of them think about one thing. They want to do one thing that's special or whatever it might be. But what is the first step that they could take in the this moment if they're thinking about getting a tattoo?
Their first tattoo.
Their first
Yeah, their
tattoo,
first
yeah.
tattoo. It's a good one because it's like it's that threshold point we are talking about. It's completely unknown. So there's a layer of just knowing that it's something that you want to do first, clarifying that, I think, without thinking too much about exactly what it is or where it's going to be. So I think a really zoomed out approach initially. Yeah, a lot of people with their first tattoo are super zoomed in, so they're going like, it needs to be the line needs to be this thick or thin, and it's got
Yeah,
to be exactly here, and they'll be getting their ruler out, like has to be 3.7 centimeters. And here are all of the really important things. So I want to put like these 7 things into the 3 centimeter tattoo. That's your stereotypical first tattoo.
yeah,
Um, okay, so the best way to approach it is to just zoom out, let go of your grip a little bit, and just clarify that it's something you actually want to do. And then clarify that it's something that you don't know anything about. The only access you have is what we've just been talking about, which is kind of like the influence of the contemporary industry. Um, and so when I'm giving this angle, Hirsch, as well for your listeners, it's like this is not the everyday prescription that you get from a tattoo studio. Just so you know,
right.
they'll probably just like talk you, walk you through a process that's going to make you get the tattoo done, and they're going to try and make it suck as little as possible. Because usually a first tattoo idea um, isn't the best in terms of design and aging and all of these different
Right,
things.
right.
So a lot of tattoo studios will just try and walk someone through getting their first tattoo, kind of like babying them through to just get something. And then on the other side of it, the person's going to go through all of this stuff from crossing the threshold of like, oh, okay, this is what it actually is. This is what it feels like. This is why it's happening. Maybe I should have got it bigger. Maybe I should have listened to them about that thing. You know, that's usually what happens. And then it's like, oh, I didn't need to put all of my ideas in this one tattoo because now I feel like getting another one. So I could have put that idea somewhere else. So zooming out, once you clarify that you actually do want to do it, the next really important thing is why, why you're getting it. So it's like getting a yes and then looking at exactly why you want to do it. So we haven't thought about what the tattoo is yet or the artwork. We're just really clarifying our reason for even lining ourselves up and approaching a process that is going to physically change us, and outwardly kind of signal. It's like what the process is one that's like it's signaling to yourself and signaling to the world and signaling from the way I see it to something beyond yourself, almost this like acknowledgement point that you're at a certain place at this time in your life. And you're doing that for a reason. So like historically, if we look at the past, and historically, if I look at all of the processes I've taken people through, it's usually that they're in a place where there's something that's changed. There's been like some significant pivot or change that makes them want to do it.
Yeah.
Once you acknowledge that, then you can start looking at what the tattoo is going to be, that zoom in. And I'd say doing that with an artist is the best way because like with any sort of specific medium or niched out thing you're doing, like building a house or buying a car, it's like if you talk to someone who knows what they're doing, you're going to end up with a better result. So you got to identify someone that you're comfortable working with, you like the finished results of things that you've seen, yeah, and that you get along with them in terms of like personality. You actually have to like and get along with this person, and I guess they need to have time for you.
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
a
that's
lot.
my
Oh,
advice.
yeah, I know. I appreciate it. It's a lot to think about because, you've made some great points in that it's impossible to become an expert about something you know nothing about or haven't ever done. And so the customer, most likely, if they've never done it before, have a certain naivete about it. And yet it's a permanent thing. It's not like I'm taking a bowling lesson and, how I do the first lesson doesn't really matter. Here you're doing
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
that's a very first time. I really appreciate this, Mark. I think there's so much to this art and this craft. And where can people find you?
Okay, yeah. They can find me at tattoopathway.com. That's the website for what we're doing in terms of working with people and guiding them, like guiding transformational tattoo journeys. So like that's a big distinction too, whether you're engaging with tattooing intentionally as a tool for growth. If it's going to be something that's initiatory and you actually want to work with the tattooing process alongside the rest of your life so that your tattoo and your life correlate and work together. That's what we do at Tattoo Pathway. Um, and then my personal Instagram is the Mark of Nara. And you can find some of the tattoo work on there that I do. But yeah, you're right, Hirsch. Just looping back, it's very different to a lot of things that you do for the first time, and it doesn't matter. Your first tattoo does matter, and like I said, in kind of the contemporary industry, people will just try and move you through getting your first tattoo because you can just move on to your second tattoo. Whereas when you start looking at tattooing as a pathway, your first tattoo and your last tattoo are just part of the same process. First page of the book, last page of the book. So something I ask people when they're approaching their first tattoo is, what's your last tattoo going to be? They're just like, some people are like, oh, I'm only getting one, or I don't know, like, and it's like, it's just one continuous process. You're starting a process with your first tattoo that will finish when you get your last tattoo, and you don't know when that is yet. And so you need to approach it in a way where all of that can actually work together in a way that's moving you towards something, and being able to take aim for that, opposed to just get caught up in the wash of whatever the tattoo industry is, or whatever the story is you tell yourself unconsciously. But yeah, people can
Yeah.
find us at Tattoo Pathway. That's the best place. We're doing a community this year. We're
Oh,
moving
that's
into
great.
like, yeah, group work.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.